A forgotten legacy. The sun was setting over the sleepy town of Hillview, casting long shadows across the quiet streets. It was one of those afternoons where nothing seemed out of the ordinary, just another day in a place where life moved at its own, unhurried pace. That was until the doors of Madison Bank creaked open, and in walked a frail, ragged old man. His name was Arthur Davies, though no one in the bank knew him by that name, just yet. He was hunched over, carrying a weathered burlap sack slung over his shoulder. His eyes were hidden beneath the wide brim of a worn-out cap, but when he stepped into the lobby, it was clear that he had a presence that no one could ignore. The few customers inside barely took notice of him. The bank employees, all behind their gleaming counters, exchanged looks, some with small smiles, others with raised eyebrows. They had all seen their share of oddities, and this was just another one to add to the list of frail old man, probably looking for handouts or asking for a loan he would never get. But when Arthur reached the center of the room, he straightened up and spoke, his voice calm yet firm. "This bank is mine." A silence fell over the room. The words seemed to hang in the air, as absurd as they were impossible. Laughter broke out almost immediately, the nervous kind that people gave when they weren't sure how to react. A few chuckles, a soft giggle. The security guard, a large man with a badge reading Joe Harlan, stepped forward. He folded his arms and raised an eyebrow, his voice booming. "Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding," he said with an air of authority. "Maybe it's best if we escort you out." Arthur didn't flinch. Instead, he shifted the heavy sack on his shoulder and then let it fall to the floor with a thud that resonated throughout the room. The sound silenced the laughter. "I'm not confused," he said again, his voice unwavering. "This bank belongs to me." The crowd quieted, the tension in the air thickening. Joe, the security guard, glanced at his supervisor, a middle-aged man in a crisp gray suit named William Martin. William was the bank's branch manager, and he had seen his fair share of strange encounters, but this was something different. He approached the old man with a measured smile, hoping to placate him before the situation escalated. "Sir, I'm afraid that's just not possible," William said, his tone polite but firm. "This bank has been here for many years. Do you have an account with us?" Arthur tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "Account? I built this bank," he said, his voice growing stronger with each word. A few nervous laughs broke out among the customers, but they quickly stopped when the old man's gaze swept over them. William hesitated, sensing something deeper behind Arthur's words. "All right," William said, adjusting his tie. "Let's take a step back. Can you tell me what's in that sack? Maybe that will help us understand." Arthur's lips curled into a faint smile, but it wasn't a pleasant one. It was the kind of smile someone gives when they've waited a long time for this moment. Slowly, he bent down, his gnarled fingers wrapping around the rough fabric of the sack. The room seemed to hold its breath as he opened it. What spilled out onto the floor wasn't just old junk or coins, as many might have expected. No, it was something far more unexpected. Bundles of old, faded banknotes, wrapped tightly with paper bands, fell onto the polished marble floor. The notes were stamped with a logo from Madison Bank, but it wasn't the modern logo seen on the counters. No, these notes had the bank's original emblem that hadn't been used for decades. A hush fell over the room. The few customers who had been laughing now stared in disbelief. William, the branch manager, stepped closer, his face paling as he saw the bills, his voice shaky. What is this?" Arthur looked around at the room with a deep, knowing gaze. "Proof," he said simply. "Proof that I built this bank, that I own it." The air in the room grew heavy. William, his hands trembling, stepped forward and carefully picked up one of the notes. His eyes scanned it, and he could barely believe what he was seeing. The banknotes were real too real, and they were not from some distant past, either. They were legitimate, official banknotes that had been in circulation when Madison Bank first opened its doors. Arthur's voice was steady, his gaze never leaving William's. "My name is in that ledger," he said, his words deliberate. "The one you keep hidden behind the counter. My name is in the records of this bank, and that's why I'm here today." William felt a chill run down his spine as the realization began to set in. He had heard stories of Madison Bank's mysterious origins, rumors whispered by the older folks in town, but he had never taken them seriously until now. Still holding the banknote, William turned to the small group of employees who had gathered behind him. His mind raced. This couldn't be real, could it? There was no way a man like Arthur Davies could have been the founder of Madison Bank. But then, the pieces started to fall into place. Without saying a word, Arthur bent down, his fingers pulling out something else from the sack, a dusty, leather-bound ledger. The pages inside were yellowed with age, and the cover cracked from years of neglect. Arthur flipped through it slowly, deliberately, as the crowd waited, watching in silence. When his fingers stopped on a page, Arthur looked up at William, his eyes steady. "Here," he said. "Look for yourself." William took the ledger from the old man, his hands shaking as he turned the pages. As his eyes scanned the names on the list, his stomach twisted. There it was, Arthur Davies, founder of Madison Bank, dating back to 1948. The signature was unmistakable. William's eyes flickered to the framed certificates on the wall. Behind him, certificates bearing the name of another family, the Matthews, who had supposedly taken control of the bank long ago. But that was impossible. If Arthur Davies was truly the founder, then everything had been built on a lie that had stood for over half a century. William's voice faltered as he whispered, This can't be." Arthur nodded solemnly. "I was betrayed," he said, his voice low and bitter, "by my own business partner. The Matthews family, they took what was mine, and now I come to take it back."